From the city of Suffolk, some quick stats as it relates to our city. We've got 84,000 people. That's a square mileage size of 430 square miles. We're the largest geographic city in the entire state of Virginia. So we've got a lot of territory to cover in Suffolk, which is really exciting from an economic development standpoint because we have a lot of opportunity. Again, on those demographics, 84,000 people. The biggest thing that we really talk about is that population change. Over the last 10 years, we saw an increase in population of 32%, and we're projected to continue to grow in that manner. So there's, like I said, there's a lot of opportunity out in the city. Civilian labor force of 41,000, unemployment rate around 7, number of households 33,000, and the household income is also something that's been growing in the city as well, which has been really exciting, about 63,000 a year, which is actually higher than the median for the state at 56. This is that chart that really shows what's going to be happening over the long time as it relates to population within the city of Suffolk. And so we're continuing to see that escalation happen out in our section of the city. And what's really exciting, I think what we usually talk about for the city of Suffolk is that we see ourselves as kind of the teenager in Hampton Roads, or maybe even the preteen. And so we're really starting to mature and develop, and a lot of that is due to the industries that are growing out there and the population trends. And this is how kind of we stack up. It's not. I don't always get the opportunity to do this in front of the other cities, so I'll soak it up as much as I can. But this is how we rank compared to our neighbors. Looking at our age, we're young as a population as well. That median age is 36 years. Here's our median household income comparison as it relates to the state, the metro area, and some of the other cities. And this one usually catches people off guard, and something that we like to put out there as well. And this is another way to look at it as well. We like to put those percentages out there. That's right. It's exactly how it works. From it relates to employment trends, this is kind of the breakdown of who's working where. And the biggest thing that we've seen is that healthcare piece and that retail piece. And then you see food. And so, again, that speaks to that population. More services out there, more groups that service that population are moving out to the city. But then we have some of those historical industries for the city, which is manufacturing and warehousing and some of those other things that we've been good at for a long time that continue to keep people employed in the city. That retail piece has been so critical and large for us. There's been new groups opening up. In the last 6 months, after the Jeffcom announcement across the street from Jeffcom, Dick's Sporting Goods signed a major lease out there, as well as TJ Maxx and PetSmart. So they're recognizing these major retailers that this is where a major population growth is happening, and they want to capture those new rooftops and people moving into the area. So even in some of these bad markets or bad announcements, things are still happening in other industries. As it relates to the education trends, these are kind of some numbers here. We're seeing a big increase. We're not building as many schools as we used to. However, we're still seeing those numbers increase as it relates to number of students. So high school, we've got about 4,000. Middle school, about 5,000. Elementary at 4. And then pre-K, a little over 1,000. Yes. And a lot of what we've seen from a child population is we haven't seen as many births happening in the city. It seems that their families are moving out with the child at a younger age. So that's kind of been one of the interesting trends we've seen over the years out in Suffolk. Again, this kind of shows the size of the city. And because we're so large at 430 square miles, we have developed two development zones within our city. We call them urban development corridors, urban suburban development corridors, and those are in those kind of pink areas within the city. And so that's the way we're not extending water and sewer and dealing with major taxpayer dollars being sent to other parts of the city. So we really concentrate tax dollars wisely within those areas. And then you'll see those dots. Those represent the office sites and industrial sites within the city. So we're trying to pursue kind of a diversity of industries coming in, not just the warehousing and the manufacturing, but also that office component that we're seeing grow into the city as well. These are the target industries that we're currently pursuing and continuing to see growth. as well as from the existing standpoint, but also from new companies coming in. So that modeling and simulation and technology firms, the medical industry has been large for us, and we continue to see that. Advanced manufacturing, a lot of manufacturing obviously has gone overseas, but that advanced piece that has a little more high-end, just delivered time kind of component to it, we're still seeing some advancement in that. Warehousing and distribution, we've heard a lot about the port already this morning. That retail piece that I've spoken about. Also hospitality, hotel growth. That's been new over the last probably 6 years in the city of Suffolk. We had 2 or 3 hotels. Now we've had almost seen that double as it relates to the city. And then some of our most historical and traditional industries is food and beverage processing. So obviously we know Suffolk is known for peanuts. We also have a lot of coffee manufactured there from Sara Lee and Massimo Zanetti. And then Lipton Tea makes all their tea bags for North America out of Suffolk. Over the last 10 years, this kind of makes up the portfolio of capital investment in the city of Suffolk. And we do think that we've seen a lot of diversification. So we get a lot of different headlines through the years talking about, well, if Jeffcom goes, then the city goes. Well, this really shows what that impact has been and the investments that have been made over the last 10 years. And you can see that pie is pretty well sliced up between those industries, and we want to continue to see that diversification within our city. And this represents over $1 billion of capital investment. And this is a pretty picture section. So advanced manufacturers, 800 jobs over that 10-year period. Food and beverage processing. Warehousing and distribution, over 1,700 new jobs over that 10-year period. Modeling and simulation and technology, over 1,300 new jobs. Hospitality, 420 new jobs. Retail, over 2,000 jobs over that 10-year period. Medical. And then other. Other really kind of incorporates a lot of different groups. One of the big ones is Town Bank. They're member service centers in Suffolk. We're actually expanding today. And so as we're continuing to grow as a city, we're looking towards other industries that we might be able to attract and bring to the city and see expansion. And one of those would be office users. And so as we mature, we start to see that we might have a market for office users within the city that we didn't necessarily have before. In 2009, I listed some of the big announcements that we had. One of the big ones was Cobham Composite Products. They're a manufacturing firm. We competed with 32 different cities throughout the East Coast and the middle part of the country as well to land their composite manufacturing facilities. And out of that facility, they do a lot of helicopter blades and composite products. They're one of the now manufacturers or vendors to the large Rolls-Royce facility out in Prince George County. We've also seen some distribution and some speculative development was still happening at the time. Retail was big. AAA built a big service center out there as well. And our local businesses that have been there continued to expand. One of the big ones was Cisco Foods. That was a $16 million project where they added about 100,000 square feet of warehouse space to their frozen service area in the northern part of the city. Pepsi was a neat project too. They were looking for a new operation, not a real big one. We worked with those guys for about 6 years. They decided to, versus move their Suffolk facility into Newport News or Norfolk, to tear down and rebuild the facility that had been sitting there for over 50 years. So that was a real exciting win for us to keep them in the city. And then in 2010, some of the big ones that we've had over the last year, real exciting one for us is the one I've got listed as number 1, GPC Green Technologies. That group is located on the BASF site where they do a lot of water treatment for municipalities and the paper industry. GPC is going to be converting the methane gas that comes from the regional landfill from steam into electricity. So they'll take the BASF facility completely off the grid, then they'll power about 3,000 homes in the Suffolk area. So it's really neat to see those green projects happen here in the area, and a real big boom for the city as far as a $20 million project. Again, that diversified piece from a retail and medical piece. The Town Bank project's been really large. They hope to move in their expansion towards the end of this summer. Bon Secours is continuing to expand as well. And then some of our companies that have been there for a while, Lipton Tea, they invested in their local facility as well. This kind of shakes up and shows you where those projects have located. And so we try to do a really strategic job to make sure that we kind of balance the city. because they're almost a tale of two cities if you're familiar with the northern part of the city and then the downtown area. We want to make sure that jobs and opportunities are happening in both parts of those cities. So you can kind of see how those dots play out over the last few years. This is our new marketing campaign, and it really plays off that growth. So we're really trying to brand ourselves as a fast-growing city, home to fast-growing companies. And we want those stories to be told by our companies themselves. And so this is something we've been rolling out this year, a large postcard campaign that will be rolling into some advertisements. So the guys from Old Dominion and Lipton, Town Bank can tell why Suffolk's so great and why they're one of those fast-growing cities in our fast-growing companies in our fast-growing city. Some of the big initiatives that we're going to be looking forward, moving forward, three big ones is the downtown. We continue to see reinvestment and renewal there. In 2008, we won the Virginia Downtown Development Association Award of Merit for long-term projects and reinvestment in the city. We've done a lot of concentration over the last few years on rental and multifamily housing to support some retail growth that we've seen over the last 10 years. So we're putting a lot of time and effort in working with developers to rehab old warehouses and investment properties in order to bring more people and rooftops to that downtown core area. Most recently, we've been partnering with Tidewater Community College as they relocated their old facility in northern Suffolk, the Portsmouth facility, to the city of Portsmouth at Victory Crossing. We partnered with them and the Urban Land Institute to take some early looks at what maybe some potential might be for the 500-plus acres out there. And obviously, this is a long-term period, but something for us to continue to focus on for new development opportunities. And basically what they did over about a week period and meeting with different groups that were interested and stakeholders in the area is they basically kind of drew out some concepts and look at some opportunities for us to make a real strategic, advanced gathering place up in that waterfront area. It's a beautiful piece of property, still has some challenges, but give or take over that 500 acres, we could do about over 1 million square feet of office, about 500,000 square feet of retail, 500 rooms of hotel, and then that residential component of over 2,000 units on that 500-plus acres. The big one that we usually get questions these last couple of months has been JeffCom. What you'll see on this photo is this is the current campus in Suffolk. It represents over 2,000 employees. They operate in these three facilities. They're all privately owned by three different owners. The latest plan that we understand that will be rolling over the next 14 months is they'll cut the workforce by about 1,000 people, leaving about 1,400 people working on the campus. And the folks that are operating in these 200,000 square foot buildings will be contracted and will be working out of the larger building that they refer to as the J7. What that's going to do is leave two long-term leases that are already in place with the GSA out here. And really what we've been getting indications and feedback from the federal government is that due to the nature and the investment that's taken place with those buildings and some of the requirements that have come from the federal government is that there's a number of different users, federal users, Homeland Security, DOD, looking at hopefully backfilling these different buildings. So I think in the end what we keep being told is that we'll actually have an increase in jobs as it relates to this thing rolling out. What the time frame is, we're not exactly sure. But we remain pretty optimistic as it relates to the investment and the technology and the things that can support growth out in this area. And more information can be found on our website.